Good morning, dear students of class 12. Welcome to this English online learning class. Today we are going to take up the text of the lesson Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. We'll be taking up part 2 of this lesson. So let us first have a quick recap of what we did in the previous class. Stories of Stolen Childhood is an extract from the book of Ennis Young, Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. And in this book, she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn the children who are working as child laborers to a life full of exploitation. So we were taking up the first part, which is titled as Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. It is about a life of a rag pickup child, Sahib. The writer meets this child in a neighborhood along with a group of other rag picker children, and early in the morning they are looking for scrounging. They are searching for gold in the garbage dump. Now, searching for gold means something which they consider as valuable as gold, because while they are scrounging through the garbage dumps, they come across something which can be sold for money and which is a source of livelihood for them, which is a source of earning for them. Now, the writer also tries to know about these children because she engages into a conversation and she learns that Sahib has come from Dhaka and he had to leave his native place because there were storms and which swept away his fields and homes. This is what his mother had told him. He is a small child and probably he doesn't remember anything. His mother had told him that because the fields and homes were washed away, they had nothing left, and so in search of a better living, they shifted. They left their native land, Dhaka, and they came and settled in Delhi. Now, the writer engages in a conversation and says that why he doesn't go to school. She also wants to know why does he do it and why he's not going to school. The boy responds immediately saying that there is no school in his neighborhood. Probably the boy has too much of self-respect to say that his family cannot afford to send him to school. Then the writer says, if I start a school, will you join? The boy says yes. And after a few days, when he meets the writer, he says, is your school ready? And this embarrasses the writer because she realizes the promise that she has made to this child is a fake promise. Now she also learns about his name, which is Sahib-e-Alam, Lord of the Universe. But it is very ironical because the boy is really struggling hard to earn a living. And she talks to these children, refers to them as morning birds because they appear in the morning and disappear at the noontime. And they are an army of barefoot boys. When she asks them, why aren't you wearing chappals? They have different reasons rather than saying that they cannot afford to have chappals. The writer also analyzes that it is not due to tradition that these children are not wearing chappals. It is Not lack of money, but tradition, as some people put it, to be barefoot. But the real reason is poverty, the perpetual state of poverty. The writer remembers a story from Udupi, which was once told to her by a man. And this man had shared that as a young boy he would go to school past a temple where his father was a priest, and he would offer prayers for a pair of shoes. But 30 years later, when she visited the same town and temple, in the backyard where lived the new priest, she could see red and white plastic chairs, and a boy dressed in a grey uniform wearing socks and shoes arrived almost panting, and he threw his bag on a folding bed. Looking at this boy, she remembered the prayer that was made by another boy after he got a pair of shoes. And this prayer was, "Let me never lose them." Probably the goddess had granted his prayer as the young children were having shoes. The young boys, like the son of the priest, now wore shoes. So the village over the years had seen lot of development. She could see the red and white plastic chairs, children going to school, carrying school bag, wearing uniform, wearing socks and shoes. So this village had seen lot of progress and development over the years. But sadly, many others, like the rag picker children whom she finds in her neighborhood, they are still shoeless. And it is not tradition, but it is perpetual state of poverty which does not allow them to afford to buy shoes. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers, we will continue further, leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metamorphically. The writer says that metaphorically, this place, Simapuri, is on the periphery of Delhi, outskirts of Delhi. But it is away from Delhi. The reason being that being in the capital city, Simapuri should be developed, but she doesn't see any development in this place. So this makes the writer remark that it is, although in Delhi, but miles away from it. Those who live here are squatters who come from Bangladesh back in 1971. So they are rag pickers. They have migrated from Bangladesh in 1971. Sahib's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it's no longer empty. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage, or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their name on voters' lists and enable them to buy grain. So as far as development is concerned, the living conditions of this place is very pathetic. The structures are almost crumbling down. The structures are of mud, their living places, they are of mud, roofs of thin tarpaulin, and it is devoid of sewage, drainage, or running. And 10,000 rag pickers are living. They are lacking in basic facilities for survival, like proper drainage, sewage system, or drinking water facilities. And they have been living in this place for 30 years more or more without any identity. But they have been provided with ration cards so they can get their names on the voters list, and which enables them also to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain, said a group of women in tattered sari when I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. So this was the compulsion. At least they could get a, square meal or meal by the end of the day. That was enough for them. Because living in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, where their fields had washed away, it was not possible. So they had migrated to Delhi in search of survival. Says a group of women in tattered saris, wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that became transit homes, temporary homes. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. So children are helping them out in their survival. And that is why they are referred as partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. So they are rag pickers. Through the years, it has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. Please refer to this. Garbage has been referred as gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it's a leaking roof, but for a child, it's even more. For them, garbage is valuable because garbage is a source of earning for them. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lighting up. When we can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a different meaning for what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For elders, it is means of survival. So, garbage have different meanings for elders and for children. For elders, it is a source of survival. It is a means of survival which enables them to get their bread, their livelihood, their living. But for children, it is full of wonder, full of surprise, because they have still hope that they would come across something while scrounging through the garbage that will just change their lives. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game. He hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. So he likes to play tennis, which is beyond his reach because tennis is an expensive game. But the child expresses his faint liking for the game. Inside, when no one is around, he admits, the gatekeeper lets me use the swing. So he's standing outside watching the game, but when nobody is around, the gatekeeper permits him inside to use the swing. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirts and shorts. Someone gave them to me. He says in the manner of an explanation. In fact, they are the discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. So he has managed to get a discarded pair of shoes from which a rich boy has thrown. And he is quite content and happy. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. The game of tennis is beyond his reach. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. So he has taken up work as a worker in